I was saying, this hearing is being live streamed, recorded, and transcribed electronically. To ensure we have an accurate record, we ask that each person speaks one at a time and avoids speaking over one another. Also, please speak clearly and loudly. When needed, I or any of my panel members will interject to ensure proper transcription. After the hearing, OTA will produce an electronic transcript upon request. The Office of Tax Appeals is an independent and neutral agency. It is not a tax court. All three ALJs are co-equal decision makers, and we can ask questions at any time. Ms. Williams, do you have any questions before we go on the record?
Just to make sure, because I'm doing this as myself, or representing for my husband and myself. When it's time to do the opening statement, this is not an argument or anything. This is basically I have so much time to do the opening statement regarding what the issues are. And then after my opening statement, then the respondent, which is California Franchise Tax Board through Ms. Watkins, will do her statement. Then after that, there's a closing statement that kind of wraps it up. My understanding, because it's a hearing, but it's not a hearing like we're in court because it's not the same. It's just more with you guys as the ALJs making decisions. Am I correct?
Yes. So OTA's job is to hear your argument, and so in your opening presentation, or your presentation, the opening statement, as it were, you will say what you believe the facts of the case to be, your position, and any support. And our job is to consider your arguments and neutrally and objectively, and to issue a opinion based on the facts, the documents that are in the record, and to address your arguments in our opinion. Okay, and then we will issue an opinion likely in the next 100 days, assuming that we close the record after this hearing. Does that answer your question?
I think so, because I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, I have opened the statement prepared, but we're not like going to trial. So I want to make sure I'm presenting everything within the time frame based off of what an opening statement is, but as well as the stuff that's been submitted, evidence and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So present everything that you want to say during your statement time.
Okay.
Okay. Franchise Tax Board, do you have any questions before we open the record?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
No
Okay.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, then we are opening the record in the appeal of Williams, OTA case number 220-9642. This matter is being held before the Office of Tax Appeals. Today's date is November 20th, 2025, and the time is approximately 3:30 p.m. This hearing is being convened virtually. Today's hearing is being heard by a 3-member panel. My name is Keith Long, and I will be the lead administrative law judge. Judge Sarah Hosey and Judge Tommy Leung are the other members of this tax appeals panel. All 3 panel members will meet after the hearing and produce a written decision as equal participants. Although the lead judge will conduct the hearing, any judge on this panel may ask questions or otherwise participate to ensure that we have all the information needed to decide this appeal. As a reminder, the Office of Tax Appeals is not a tax court. It is an independent appeals body. The panel does not engage in ex parte communications with either party. OTA will issue an opinion based on the party's arguments, the admitted evidence, and the relevant law. For the record, will the parties please state their names and who they represent, starting with the representatives for Franchise Tax Board?
This is Andrea Watkins for the Franchise Tax Board.
And I'm Cynthia Kent, also with the Franchise Tax Board.
Thank you. And for appellants?
Hi, my name is Lakiri Williams. I am a co-taxpayer joint return for Lakiri and Nicholas Williams. My husband, my spouse, is not going to be present today.
Thank you. All right. So the issues to be decided in this appeal are as follows. First, whether appellants have demonstrated that adjustments to FTB's proposed assessment are warranted. Second, whether appellants have demonstrated reasonable cause for the late filing of their return. And third, whether the accuracy-related penalty may be abated. My understanding is that there are no witnesses today. Ms. Williams, can you please confirm that there will be no witnesses and that you won't be testifying?
I don't have any witnesses to testify.
Okay, thank you. The exhibits for this appeal consist of appellant exhibits 1 through 9 and franchise tax board exhibits A through S. These exhibits were discussed at the pre-hearing conference and they are admitted without objection. Ms. Williams, you requested 30 minutes to make your presentation and you may begin when ready.
I'm ready, thank you. So, my name is LaKeria Williams, and the reason we're here is because I do not agree with the proposed assessments by the Franchise State Tax Board. In 2000, the issue at hand deals with our 2015 taxes. And with the evidence presented, inclusive of what has been given by the Franchise State Tax Board, to back up what I'm saying, I actually, personally, I'm the one that did it. I timely filed my 2015 taxes with both the IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board. I did it electronically through a program called Tax Act. I did it on April 14th of 2016, which was before the deadline of April 15th, 2016 for the 2015 taxes. Unfortunately, although my husband and I are not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, we end up owing taxes for our 2015 taxes because even though we had our last child in 2015, purchased a house, we had to utilize hard money funds, which also required us to take out money from early retirement. There are penalties and things that are associated with that. So we did the pre-penalties through CalPERS, we did penalties afterwards, and that has to be attached to your income. So our income was greater in numbers than it ever has been. However, knowing this and knowing I could not pay the full amount, I immediately, when I was electronically filing, requested an installment payment plan with the IRS. However, there was no money due with our California taxes. We didn't get all the credits that you would normally get because our income has skyrocketed because of what was added. However, we did have a lot of tax credits for both the IRS and California Franchise Tax Board, which resulted at the time when I filed still money due to the IRS, but no money due to the California Franchise Tax Board. On May 21st, and this is something that is shown through the transcripts, and I believe you can look at the respondents' evidence by their attachment S that they submitted prior to the pre-trial conference. On May 21st, the IRS agreed to us participating in the installment plan. And we went on to pay with no issues. Now, from that time moving forward, every tax year, I still paid on time, but I still file on time. However, I did not foresee any issues because the money we would receive back in refunds for both would go directly to the IRS because of money that we owed, because we had refunds coming from 2016, 17, should have it for 18, 19, etc. It was not until 2018 that I understood we had any issues because the Franchise Tax Board aggressively came after us for not filing or paying things for 2015. This is when we first found out that we weren't getting mail. We weren't getting mail to our mail address, and there was issues with the postal service. But more importantly, my husband used to be employed in Redlands, California. In 2015, that's where he was employed. And apparently we found out that the address in Redlands, California, where he was once employed, that is where the IRS first submitted their letters, like I can't think of the name, but C10s or C20s. There are different notifications that let you know when they're choosing to readjust your tax return. So the IRS made a tax adjustment on our 2015 taxes. We did not know. We were not notified, and the notification was first mailed to my husband's former place of employment, and we never lived there. That was his place of employment. It was like Alabama Avenue in Redlands, California. We used to work for Affordable Dentures in Redlands, California. In 2017, he got sick, a congestive heart failure. And not only was he sick, but the company decided to close all of their California locations at that time. It was a franchise that had them in different areas. They closed it at that time. We had no control about them closing. We had no access to their accounts. When they decided to close it, they let patients know they were closing. And if they had any conditions or anything, they had to either contact the main branch in North Carolina or forward information to some place in San Diego that had nothing to do with me or my husband. So again, when I get all this stuff, we're really shocked because my husband is sick. He had congestive heart failure. We thought we we're going to lose his life. We get a tax lien. There's all these things going on. And so from that point forward, I tried my best to figure out what's going on, to communicate with both the IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board. From that time all the way up until present, we have found that there were issues where they seemed like we didn't file our 2017 and 18 and 16 taxes, 19 taxes. It was ridiculous, to the point where I had to come up with and show the information proving, no, we filed and here is proof. We filed and here is proof. And it happened over and over and over and over again. And then we were making payment plans for what I believe was the original issues from 2015, and we were good to go. And then afterwards, I had to prove to the California Franchise Tax Board, no, we filed on time. And then they were saying no because of the readjustment. So California Franchise Tax Board took the readjustment. I'm saying readjustment if that's properly, but they basically, when the IRS filed again, they refiled based upon earned income that they said we failed to report came in it came from like some credit card statement for over $100,000. And so it was listed as unreported income. They took us from having a 1040 in the way I filed it to my husband being self-employed. So it changed a lot of the credits and stuff that we had. And so now that the credits and stuff are changed, now we go from owing California nothing to, okay, now we owe California because all these credits are taken out. And California saying, okay, well, you didn't file this correctly. So they're now acting as if we failed to file based off of the IRS's readjustment of our taxes that we didn't even know till almost 2 years after they did it because we didn't have communication with them. We didn't have the things coming in the mail from going to Redlands because we've lived in Apple Valley where I'm at since December of 2015. We didn't get that. And then other notification that they stated that came here, even though I claimed it did not come. I talked about the mail issues in the United States Post Office. Those are things I put in evidence. The actual IRS transcripts even show certain dates where things that the IRS sent to us were sent back. Like for an example, in 2017, on April 15th of 2017, we successfully had, we filed our stuff with a refund. And because we had refunds, they just intercepted it, which we expected. It's like, okay, we owe. So I'm not going to see that money. It's going directly to IRS. And I'm making payments on the payment plan with the installment. Cool. Well, on July 2nd, 2018, there was a miscellaneous penalty with no notification, and there's an additional tax assessed because again, they did an adjustment. And then they sent a CP 21 notice as well. But again, we never received that notice. Then they actually show later that that same notice was undeliverable. Then they go back and it keeps going because this is back and forth. And all the way to 2020, apparently in November of 2019, they mailed us another notice. And then on February 5th of 2020, it shows undeliverable for the collective due process hearing. So there's different hearings and stuff going on that we're unaware of because we never received the things in the mail. But I didn't understand the problem because I'm consistently in communication with both the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board, because the Franchise Tax Board put a lien on our home, still on there. They did a tax levy. We have the tax levy, the lien on our home, our accounts frozen, our checking and savings accounts zeroed out. We had, at one time, we had like stocks and bonds all zeroed out. And so by the time we get to where we are here today in 2022 and 2023 and in 2024, very, very aggressive stance is taken by the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board, even though I'm in communication with them, to the point where I am submitting appeals, I'm submitting new forms, an audit reconsideration request. I had to hire a tax attorney. I dealt with getting, I want to say, what are they called? An auditor, forensic accounting, because I was even able to prove, hey, look, we never received this. These are all the funds that came from this time period to this time period. My husband is an employee. You're trying to make it seem like he was self-employed as if he earned this, and that's not the case. And I even had the person I was trying to get to become a witness, did not work out, but we definitely had an agent I had to deal with directly while I was making the payments, and then letting me know that at the end of the day, the problem is the fact that this credit card company submitted this with my husband's name. And then when it was a problem and they called themselves communicating with us, the IRS, we didn't receive that information. So by the time we find out everything that's going on, we're 2 years removed from that time frame. And so we went through a lot of stress and a lot of different things to try to pull all this information, because now we're 10 years out. This is 2025, and this is something from 2015, and we're 10 years out. So I've submitted information. I've been on point with the payments, to the point where even though we're here today, there's not even all the penalties and fees and everything that the California Franchise Tax Board has taken against us, that I don't think is fair. It's a zero balance because it's never stopped. Again, zeroed out accounts, the lien, the levies, the payments, and me still making payments and doing things in the midst of it while we're trying to work this all out. So I definitely feel like the we definitely should have adjustments to the proposed assessments. They're warranted because there's proof and showing that not only should this not happen in the first place, but there are mistakes made. And as much as the mistakes were made, they weren't on us. And I have went through different processes showing that they weren't on us, still working with the IRS. And I am actually to this day waiting to hear back. I know there was a government shutdown, but one of the issues I had, and I ended up not bringing it in evidence, was the fact that, hey, I still have not heard back from my audit reconsideration request. And there are deadlines involved. And I'd actually filed an audit reconsideration request for the year 2015 because of all the things that have taken place, not just an appeal. I did an audit reconsideration request. And that was the reason we didn't have our we actually had this hearing was supposed to happen way earlier this year. And between me trying to receive feedback and my husband's medical issues, because he had congestive heart failure in 2017, he had another major heart issue in May of 2020, and unfortunately had some kidney disease stuff going on this January. So we've had so many issues medically, things that's happened in our home. We've had deaths in the family. We've had to deal with pretty much almost losing it all because of the penalties and the fees and the aggressive behaviors, our accounts being zeroed out. I have a son in college I couldn't do anything with for financial aid purposes because my accounts have been put to zero over all this. But throughout the entirety of this time, in spite of the aggressive behavior, in spite of the penalties, in spite of the fees, in spite of all that we're doing, I have continuously communicated with both the Franchise State Tax Board and the IRS, and my story has not changed. At the time, I did file 2015 on time. I definitely understand that when the adjustments would be made, it was my responsibility to respond to that. However, we did not receive notification properly because it was sent to one address that we never lived. It was my husband's prior place of employment. And the other time it was undeliverable here. So by the time we received all the information that we were coming up against, we're battling and submitting it. So I definitely think that the proposed assessments are not warranted, that are against us in terms of us have a reasonable cause for filing our return late. We actually filed on time, but we did things based upon communicating with IRS, communicating with the franchise tax board, and still submitting things that they're wanting us to submit, considering all that's taken place. We didn't just let me not file our taxes. No, we filed them all timely. And then issues come up. And again, I haven't ignored them in spite of our accounts being zeroed out, in spite of all the penalties and fees and the liens and stuff still on our home. I still made payments when we could. I still did things. And at this time, there is $0.00, inclusive of all the penalties and fees owed to the California Franchise Tax Board if we were going to um, just presume that everything as stands is correct, because that's how much I've been putting into this. That's how much we've been taking out of it. I'm really here. It's not just a moral thing, but I'd like those things to be readjusted. We should not have had those penalties. We should not have those fees. We should not have had all of these things that were done. I think that the accuracy related penalties should be abated, because not only did we file on time, but in the process of filing on time, in spite of the stress, in spite of the medical issues, communicating with everyone, we did our part. We're still doing our part, and we can't take back the past, right? They're not going to say, "Oh, we're sorry," and put all that money back in the account. But at minimum, they can replace the fees. They can adjust the proposed assessments. They can abate the accuracy related penalty, because again, we aren't just some people who are ignoring the law. I understand taxes are important to be paid. I understand we have to do our part. I am a US resident. I'm a California resident. We do our part. We pay our taxes. We file on time. And once we were communicated with properly to understand all of this madness that has been happening, I have done nothing short of keeping in touch with the Franchise State Tax Board and trying to work with them in the midst of showing none of these things should be relevant. The only thing I'm waiting for now from the IRS is the response from the audit reconsideration. I'm concerned because we're getting ready to move into 2026, and this is 2025. This has really affected our lives in a horrible way, given us stress and hardships. And that's the reason for this appeal. Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, I was just trying to
I
signal
see the
for one
finger. I was like,
moment. What?
whatever you want to
No,
ask,
no,
I'm
no.
here.
I couldn't find the cursor on my computer to unmute my microphone. So my apologies for that. Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
I believe so. I was trying to make sure I did it within the time frame. I mean, I have the exhibits in front of me. I can answer any questions or concerns, because I do want to make it clear. I don't have an issue personally with anybody in the franchise tax board. I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm not, none of those things are present. I understand from the franchise tax board point of view, based upon what the IRS did before we knew about it, they took that information to do their reassessments to come against us. Once I understood what took place, because again, I didn't even know, it was almost 2 years before we understood, because we were like, lien on the house? What? Why am I getting these notices from the California Franchise Tax Board? I keep getting, like I said, I filed everything timely. I'm filing 16 and 17 and 18. And when refunds would normally come, it doesn't alarm me to wonder why we're not getting refunds, because I know I owe the IRS. So since I owe the IRS, if refunds come, that's going to go towards what you owe. And we hadn't been in bad standing. They have been receiving our stuff. And so you'll see big numbers on the transcript. When you see thousands upon thousands of dollars being done at once, that's the times I filed taxes and a refund would have been assessed. It's just going right back to them. And there was a time that they actually lost a tax return. I had to go through so much to prove, hey, I filed this year, this year, this year. I talked to this agent, I talked to this person, and I had to show all this information because they didn't have it on record. And then they finally found it. It was a fax. And someone took notes, and then they readjusted that. And this has been an ongoing headache, stressor, hardship for almost a decade over a lack of communication. And so, on my part as a taxpayer, the moment we understood what was taking place, I have not failed to communicate. And the times that the Franchise Tax Board has not heard from me, I've sent emails or made phone calls. Like I said, we almost lost my husband in 2017, in 2020, and this year in January. It's a lot. But I have still maintained the same thing I've said from the jump. I filed on time. I did things I was supposed to do. The moment I had to owe, and it was like 80,000. It wasn't what it was when they readjusted it. Immediately, installment plan, payment plan, you'll see payment records from me. You'll see big things from me. And at times you'll see any breaks. A lot of times that was around times of issues with my husband's medical, or we couldn't do it because my accounts were literally zeroed out by the Franchise State Tax Board and the IRS. And so when my husband would receive a check as a dentist, it's going directly to the Franchise State Tax Board, directly to the IRS, and with nothing left. And whatever is left, it's coming right out of the account. And nothing from nothing leaves nothing. And we have a household of 4 boys, and my mother-in-law lives with us, and all these different hardships and stressors coming out, and the lights are getting turned off, and we're getting all these different notices, even though we're working to make it work. So it's just a situation where I don't know what else I could do. But again, nothing against the Franchise Tax Board. I get what they're saying in terms of, okay, well, this is readjusted, so you need to pay this. But no, there were issues and there were mistakes to be made, and it wasn't a mistake on our end. We've done everything. We've been transparent. I'm still transparent. I will give anything that's asked for and required. That position has not changed, and that's why I did the appeal.
Thank you. I appreciate you joining us today, and I understand that this is stressful, and that it certainly sounds like you've been through a lot outside of the tax stuff. So I do appreciate you coming today. With that in mind, I do have some questions, and please keep in mind, I'm just trying to clarify the facts so that so that our co-panelists and I can come to kind of the correct answer. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first I wanted to ask, one of the documents that you submitted was the Thanks for Choosing Tax Act email, and it shows filing of your federal return. But it looks like that email is with respect to your 2022 return. It's page 195 of your exhibits.
Okay,
I've
what happened, to clarify with that, around that time, the California Franchise Tax Board was stating that they didn't have returns I know I've submitted.
Gotcha.
So I went back to grab the ones I did and redo whatever they needed to see and make sure they send everything. So one of the things they were stating is I didn't file until, I want to say, it made it seem as if I didn't file until 2022. No, I went back after communicating with them and trying to show them what I did submit and resubmit things and send it to them. When it comes to Tax Act, I've been dealing with Tax Act since 2012 or 13. And that is the place that I have done my taxes every year. From this point forward, after all of this mess, it's like, no, have someone else do it, right? But I had always submitted it, and I did it that way because it kept an electronic record of everything. So there's one place that's able to pull and have everything I've ever submitted. And so when I spoke with someone from the California Franchise Tax Board, I can't think of the name right now, but I have all the stuff in writing. I can produce whatever documents is necessary. Give me a couple of days if you guys need it. Whatever they asked me for, I gave them. So for example, they were like, well, you never filed 2018. Yes, I filed 2018 timely. Here's proof. Here's proof. Well, can you resubmit this? So anything that needs to be resubmitted, I did that. And I believe I put those things in so they can see it because there's an electronic or digital footprint timestamp of everything submitted through Tax Act. And that was the last time I did a submission based off what they requested from me.
Okay, that's fair. And then I want to ask with respect to the bank statements that you gave.
Did you talk about the Wells
Um,
Fargo one?
Yes.
Okay.
So where you highlighted deposits, what are those highlighted deposits? What do they
Well,
represent?
my husband's income. So for 2015 and 2016, and at the time, because again, remember, we didn't find out about this stuff until a couple years after it first started. Some of these banks, after 3 years or some after 7 years, they get rid of everything. So I went back to retrieve all that I could at that point because 2015 is 2015. By the time you're in 2020, some of that stuff is no longer available. So I was able to retrieve from his account what he had up to that point. And the reason I did that is because every dime he got from his employer was put in that account, every single dime. And it not only showed that he was not self-employed, he was employed. It also showed when they were trying, because they were going to try to transition to give him an office before they decided to cut out of California. That was something they were planning to do in the future. But if that didn't happen in 2014 or 15 or 16, they're going to do that in 17. But what's at issue is the 2015 taxes. And when the IRS redid 2015 taxes, they changed it and made it seem like we are self-employed, like he is the
Right.
person who owns this is what he is. And one of the big things that came up is this unearned income or this earned income, which was credit card statement that came from the credit card thing when someone does a refund, whatever, and it was submitted as if, oh, he didn't report this $100,000+ that he received in income. Well, he didn't report those credit cards coming in the income because he didn't see that. And he didn't see that because even though he was the dentist in charge of the office, and that's his office in terms of being dentist, he didn't pay himself. And so I showed those bank statements so you guys could see every single solitary deposit. All the money that came from that business was put into that account, and it was direct deposits. And you'll never see a deposit for $100,000 because it didn't happen. And you'll also notice that it didn't say from him paying himself. It showed the name of the dentist who is in charge for affordable dentures. I can't think of her name, was Carolyn or whoever her name was. That's how it came through. So he didn't write himself a check. He wasn't self-employed. He was employed by someone else, and they all came through. But the reason the IRS claimed that we didn't report income is because, oh, this is your office, so you're really self-employed, and you failed to let us know about this 100 plus over $100,000 income that you received. If we received it, I'd be happy because we owe money like a mug. Please, I would love to pay some things and bills. I've got 4 growing boys. Again, currently a college student, a high school junior, a high school freshman, and my baby is 10 years old. Um, Big and tall athletes. You know, my youngest child that's 10 is 10, but my 14-year-old and my 16-year-old, my 9-year-old, everybody's 6 and over, and they eat like a madman. I would love to get $100,000 in one time. That did not happen. But the window of opportunity to be able to prove that left because we did not timely respond because we didn't receive notification. So if I get something and I ignored a notice, that's on me. But I didn't ignore a notice, never got it.
Okay. And then I want to be clear with respect to the credit card amount, the 1099K. I am a little confused by your appeal letter, so I just want to make sure I understand your contention. So your contention is that your husband's employer, they received that 1099K money, but they put the merchant card services account in your husband's name And even though he did not get it and that money was not deposited into your Wells Fargo account, right?
Yeah, I don't think they did it like that either.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say most of the people involved back then, some are locked up, some got fired, some have passed away, and they end up redoing the whole business. There was a slew of dentists who end up suing them for some of the business practices. We dealt with things that, like, we had to deal with lawsuits, malpractice lawsuits, because when the company decided to leave and people had malpractice issues, they put those things against my husband as if that was my husband's business. We had to go through 3 different lawsuits to show, hey, this is number one, that wasn't his business. He didn't own it. Number two, he didn't shut things down. They left the state of California. And number three, he didn't do faulty dentistry. But we had to go through those things because at the time there were some shady folks in that company, shady people in that company, and they were doing things that weren't by the books, and we were victims of that. There are other folks that are victims of that. I didn't put that stuff as exhibits because that didn't to me seem relevant to this case specifically. It was more relevant to the malpractice stuff that we had to deal with. But they fudged a lot of paperwork. And I can't think of it right now. I know it's in front of me, but I can't think of it right now. But one of the exhibits that I submitted were documents that were filed, things from the state of California for his practice. And my husband, it shows that he had filed this business back in 2012. Well, we're from Sacramento. No, I'm from Sacramento. He's not. I'm from Sacramento, California. And there was a time we lived in Sacramento for a short period of time. And when we lived in Sacramento, my husband had a private practice. And that was what was filed in 2012. And that private practice stopped when we moved to Southern California when he got a new job with Affordable Dentures. But one of the things I show, and it's in an exhibit, so the franchise task force should have it too. I believe it was under exhibit number 3 for us. It was a business search record for taxpayer former business. Um, I did a business search, and when you see the business search that we did, it shows that the franchise task board suspended the corporation. And the reason to suspend, and this was a corporation, the initial filing date of April 3rd of 2012.
Mhm.
Now, there's all kind of different people who could be the registered agents. One of the things I thought that was interesting is if you see the mailing address, there's a P.O. box in Kingston, North Carolina. We've never lived in Kingston, North Carolina. We've never had a business in Kingston, North Carolina. Kingston, North Carolina is the parent company address for Affordable Dentures. And they did all the filings because they were supposed to end up later allowing my husband to get the business, but he came on as an employee, and he had to be able to help the business out. He actually made the business $1 million. We never seen that. And again, they end up shutting it down. But it's interesting because one of the things I do know, just being a California resident and having a business in California, you have to file your statement of information, all of those things. If you have an LLC, any kind of corporation, through the Secretary of State's office. And they have California registered agents and agents as an authorized employees, like this Amanda person, Gabriella, Daisy, Beatrice, Jesse, John, Diana, Sarai, that's all from this. We don't know those people. These are people that were hired by the business. And it's interesting that they're the ones who were updating it because in 2017, the business shuts down. But they even went back in 2018 and filed a statement of information as if my husband employed them. Again, we didn't find out about a lot of this stuff until of the issues with the franchise tax board and the IRS. My husband, again, unfortunately, I remember it like yesterday. We had to deal with him having congestive heart failure, and he wasn't even 40 years old at the time. We're 46 and 47 now. Next year, by the grace of God, we'll be 47 and 48. So in 2017, which was the last time he worked for them, that happened. And they end up shutting that office down. He was the only dentist there. That was it. So I found it very interesting that the agents for the registered agents were filling forms out in 2018 when this business is not going in 2018. This business is no longer existing. But the way they filled it out is as if my husband told them to do it or still employed them. He did not. With the credit card information, let me come back because I think I'm going off track. To with the way they did the credit cards, one of the other exhibits I had that was showing how they did check requests and credit cards, it puts it under receipt at Nicholas J. Williams DDS, and it has the address of the place, right, with the credit cards and stuff. That's how they put on the receipts. But everything had to go to Affordable Dentures. That's the name of the business, Affordable Dentures. But with every dentist, they put the dentist, they have, because they're not, California is very funny when it comes to law, when it comes to any profession. So you can't practice dentistry in the state of California if you're not a California dentist. You can't even come and be a dental hygienist, even if you're a dentist elsewhere. You can't practice law in California just because you're barred somewhere else. It doesn't just work that way. There's processes for that. And it's the same thing here. And so since this company in North Carolina was opening all these franchise offices, they had to have a dentist there. The dentist that they had there in 2014 and 15 was not my husband. My husband comes in and gets employed by them and works underneath someone else. But then by the time we're in 2017, his name is on there. That wasn't the case in 2015 or 16. And in 2017, when his name is on there, his name is on the office as the dentist in charge, but it's not his business. So again, he could not even just to process a refund. He couldn't just do a refund. They had to request it. He had to sign it, and it had to go to the parent company, North Carolina, to approve it in order for it to happen. And another exhibit, I show a couple of refunds that took place, but they couldn't just be because I say so, and it's coming from his bank. He had no bank account with that company. Any and all funds coming in for business went to them. He only received an income. And I think that's the reason why I was trying to show the business records and trying to show the refunds and the checks. And I, at the time, and it's on one of the exhibits, the woman's name was Susan somebody. It's on one of the exhibits who was in charge and had management and control. There was no money from the business that came to my husband at all.
Okay. All right, last question from me. So I understand that you didn't receive the IRS notifications. I just want to check in with respect to the Franchise Tax Board notifications.
I'm getting them now. There was a time I was not getting them. When I didn't, and I let them know, actually, we had issues with the United States Postal Service. And I've explained this to California Franchise Tax Board numerous occasions. You know, you have to take a test to work for the post office.
Mhm.
And in the test, you're supposed to be able to decipher between the streets and the numbers. It's a basic test, right? For a postal carrier. Cool. So it should not be an issue for a federal job. However, my home address, and again, we've lived here since December of,
Wait, real quickly.
yes, yes, sir.
I do want to remind you you're live streaming right now, so
Oh, I'm so sorry.
don't say your home address.
Okay. Thank you very much. My home address, where we've lived since December 10th of 2015.
Okay.
And made sure we did all the arrangements for a change of address with the post office, all of that stuff. However, 2016, 17, and 18, for 3 years, we had issues because the numerical portion of my address is my number plus my street. Then there's a street behind me and a street behind them. So let's say 1, 2, 3 different streets. They have 3 different street names. Unfortunately, same numbers. So this is not my address. Fictionally, if my address was 12345 Pillsbury Lane, then behind me is 12345 Quaker Oats Lane Street, and behind them is 12345 Cracker Jacks Road. 12345 Cracker Jacks Road would get my mail. 12345 Quaker Oak Street would get the mail from Cracker Jacks Road. And I was getting mail from both places not coming to me. And it's not that it wasn't addressed properly. It was more of the issue of the mail carriers not paying attention, because it's not very common where you come across, I have a cul-de-sac and a street in the same neighborhood, the exact street numbers. So someone not paying attention to their job is giving the wrong mail out. Sometimes it's supposed to be signed, sometimes it's not. And so if you send something to 12345 Pillsbury Way, and that's my address, it should come to me. But unfortunately, there were times where it was properly addressed. And by the mailbox rule, you'll assume if you send it out, that's good to go. But it was given to Quaker Oaks, or it was given to the other street. And sometimes the neighbors would bring them, sometimes they would not. And again, it happened for a consistency of almost 2.5, 3 years. And I know, because I would every time go knock on the neighbor's door. Hey, here's my mail, complain to the post office. That happened for 2.5 years. And during that 2.5 year time span is the time where the California Franchise Task Force were sending things to me that I didn't receive. And the first time I did receive a notice, I contacted them, and then we figured out I didn't get everything that they stated they submitted. So then they start telling me things they submitted, or they would send me emails. Like, although I have the Gmail account, I had a Hotmail account forever. They had a Hotmail, and then that's how I would collect. Okay, you said you sent me what? Can I have a copy of this? And we would start receiving it and responding to things based off of that.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. I'm gonna ask my co-panelists if they have questions. Judge Hosey, do you have any questions?
Hi, Mrs. Williams. This is Judge Hosey. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate your testimony. I just have one question. You were saying that you were working with the IRS and making payments and talking to someone. Are you still working on the 2015 tax year with the IRS?
Yes, and this is why. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But what I'm working on them with is we are waiting for that. And I know there was a break, but the last thing I did was what's called an audit reconsideration request.
Oh,
Something
okay.
to do one time, because I had been working with them, and I had Tammy Monroe was the agent last year that I was working with, and I found out that she made it appear as if we signed off on something that we did not. Um, Apparently, there was an issue with one of the tax years that shouldn't have been, and we're in communication. And I was like, well, I need to be back on the installments because that's what's been going on. But even with the installments for all that's taking place at this time, we shouldn't owe anything. This is ridiculous. And so her thing was, okay, well, since you can't tell me who to talk to at whatever the credit card person's name is, why don't we just still have you make payments and make sure that you're up to date in terms of being correct with us? Because if not, you can't even be on the installment plan. I think it was for 2022 taxes and 2023. And then we'll just go from there while you're filing your amended return. When I was filing the amended return, I was told, okay, even though you're filing the amended return, it can go back and forth, but it's so far behind because after 10 years, it kind of drops off anyway. So since you're so far behind, we're talking about 2015, the best thing you could do is the audit reconsideration request form. So I had submitted an audit reconsideration request for 2015. I have not heard back. I was trying to contact them again. Now that the government shutdown apparently is done, I'm still trying to contact them for that because it's really messing up everything. I have a son in college, and it's like, what's going on with financial aid? Because it's just kind of tilting things because it makes everything keeps going back to 2015, and we're getting ready to go to 2026.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. I just want to make sure I had it correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Judge Leon, do you have any questions?
Well, thank you for coming in this afternoon, Ms. Williams. I have no questions for you at this time, maybe later, but thank you.
Thank you,
Oh.
Your Honor.
All right, we then are going to move forward with Franchise Tax Board's presentation. Franchise Tax Board requested 10 minutes, and you may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The issues on appeal are whether for the 2015 tax year, appellants have proven error in FTB's proposed assessment of additional tax, which is based on federal action, whether appellants have established reasonable cause to abate the late filing penalty, and whether appellants have established a basis to abate the accuracy-related penalty. FTB initially accepted the figures reported on appellant's 2015 late filed return, but imposed a late filing penalty in addition to filing enforcement-related fees. However, subsequently, FTB received federal information which showed that the IRS had reviewed appellant's 2015 federal tax return and made adjustments resulting in additional federal tax and penalties. FTB followed the federal adjustments in accordance with California law and assessed additional tax, an additional late filing penalty, and an accuracy-related penalty. The law provides that a proposed assessment based on federal action is presumed correct, and the taxpayer bears the burden of proving error. In support of their position that the assessment is in error, appellants claim that the large unreported income item, which consists of 114 merchant card transactions totaling $184,117, reported on a 1099, were improperly attributed to appellant husband by a previous employer, Affordable Care. While appellants show their attempts to contact Affordable Care and Synchrony Bank, which issued the 1099, they have not provided a corrected 1099, nor have they provided a statement from the previous employer stating that appellant husband did not receive the income at issue. Appellant husband's tax year 2015 wage and income transcript shows that the merchant card income at issue was paid to appellant husband, and it does not show that Affordable Care paid appellant husband any W-2 wage income. Absent further evidence, appellant's assertions are unsupported and are therefore insufficient to meet their burden of proof to show error in FTB's assessment. In regard to penalties, FTB properly imposed an additional late filing penalty due to appellant's late filed return and the increase in appellant's taxable income. Once properly imposed, a late filing penalty may only be abated upon a showing of reasonable cause. A taxpayer exercising ordinary business care and prudence would ensure the timely filing of their return. Appellants did not, nor have they explained why their return was filed over 2 years late. As such, appellants have not established reasonable cause for their late filing. FTB followed federal action and also properly imposed an accuracy-related penalty due to appellant's substantial understatement of income tax. This penalty may only be reduced upon a showing of reasonable cause, substantial authority, or adequate disclosure with a reasonable basis for the position taken. Appellants have not provided any information which shows that they meet the requirements which would allow for a reduction of this penalty. And while appellants contend that they submitted a reconsideration request to the IRS of the underlying federal assessment, a recent account transcript failed to show any pending federal action. The transcript shows that the IRS has made a final federal determination and no tax or penalty has been abated. Therefore, FTB requests that its assessment be affirmed. I'm happy to answer questions from the panel.
Thank you. I do not have any questions. Judge Hosey, do you have any questions?
This is Judge Hosey. No questions from me. Thank you for your presentation.
Judge Leung, do you have any questions?
Again, no questions at this time for the Franchise Tax Board. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Williams, before we go on with your closing statement, I wanted to ask, with respect to the request for re-audit, in light of the fact that we the federal government had it shut down for the last month or so. Do you think if I held the record open for 30 days, that would be sufficient time for you to get some sort of documentation that there's an ongoing process with the IRS?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, I not only can get, if you hold the record open for 30 days, I not only will get something from the IRS with the reconsideration, but, if it's okay with the franchise tax board, I'll actually also make sure they have a copy if they'd like of the, what is it? Yeah, I'll give them a copy of the audit reconsideration request form. I'll also supply them with the information of whomever I speak with the IRS. And I'll also provide them information because one of the things that they stated is that there is a final federal determination from the IRS. We didn't agree to final determination and we've been back and forth with them. So that's something that I contend, not what she's saying specifically, but because that is not what's been agreed with us. Because if there's a final federal determination, then there was no need for me to submit the audit reconsideration request, which I was told to submit and told where to submit it to. They gave me an address and everything. And
Okay.
yeah, so I don't like if that was how they decided and they would end it, then what would be the purpose of me even submitting an audit reconsideration, especially because we're already 10 years out.
Sure. Okay, so then I am gonna go ahead and do that. It's the 20th today, so and there are 30 days in November, so I'm gonna hold the record open till December 20th for those purposes. Please provide the information from the IRS and also your audit reconsideration request and other communications from the IRS that show that there's an ongoing conversation with the federal government. All right.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I heard them say that there were, no W-2s filed in the initial in the initial 2015 taxes when I filed them electronically, and I have to contact Tax Act to see if they can give me that stuff back again. We filed W-2s for my husband. That's why I was not self-employed. For 2015, he actually received W-2s.
Okay. I understand that contention. I don't have anything in the exhibits that show that.
Right. I didn't submit W-2s and exhibits. I submitted the things I submitted. But it's because it's something that franchise tax board brought up. It's like, well, when I filed the 2015 taxes before it was redone, we did W-2s. That's why he wasn't self-employed. When the IRS did
Then
their adjustment, they adjusted him as self-employed. But no, we have W-2s from that year for him.
Oh, sorry, I am looking at Exhibit K, and it does show W-2s in addition to the 1099-K information. So I do have that, so I don't need it additionally. Okay, so we'll hold the record open until December 20th. For that reason, I will issue a post-hearing order for that, and then Franchise Tax Board will have the opportunity to respond. They will get 30 days as well. Ms. Williams, you requested 10 minutes for a closing statement, and you may begin when ready, okay?
Okay, I'm ready. So, in closing, I just want to state again, we initially filed our 2015 taxes on time with the California Franchise Tax Board and the IRS. We had W-2s. We had a messed up situation outside of our control in terms of the communication. The US mail, I'm not going to say the California Franchise Tax Board did not timely submit anything to us. We've had the same address since December 2015. We do receive our mail. Unfortunately, for a period of 2.5 years, there was an issue with the mail being delivered to us. They actually end up firing the people involved. Those people no longer work our mail route because this was a complaint of not just myself and the people I'm talking about, but our neighbors. a lot of big issues because we had ballots missing. There's all kind of things when you improperly deliver the mail. And that's a big deal. That's a crime. And there are things that takes place because of it, and it has taken place. Um, it's not something I submitted into evidence, but it's something that I have discussed. And again, I don't, I don't feel it's fair for us to be forced to pay proposed assessment penalties and adjustments as if we did things incorrectly. I'm sorry, improperly. She stated there was no W-2 filed, but there are W-2s, and you just stated you've seen it in evidence. W-2s are in existence. We don't have a W-2 for that 1099 because that 1099 does not exist. Again, considering the facts and evidence that's involved, we should not continue to be penalized for actions outside of our control. And I say continue because I'm not asking for everything to be reversed. That would be great. We can't turn back the hands of time, right? The damage is already done. We've already had our accounts zeroed. We've already dealt with the financial hardships. We've already had the franchise tax board still has a lien on our home. We've already had all of our stocks and bonds and retirement accounts completely depleted. That happened within the past 2 years. There's nothing else. Like you squeeze all the blood out of the turnip. There's nothing else to squeeze in regards to that, right? Outside of future stuff. But the franchise tax board has not only received the amounts that would have been owed, but they've received the amounts that they should not have had to do. The proposed assessment based off California law, I understand, but even based off the law that California states, we have proof that it should not be the way they suggest. And all we're requesting is for them to right the wrongs by abating the accuracy related penalty, by adjusting the proposed assessments, because those things that time can't be taken back. The hundreds of thousands of dollars taken from my family, the retirement incomes, the stocks and bonds, the things my children will never see, it's just gone. It's just gone. It's never coming back. I get it. But it would be a blessing and helpful if they could at least abate those accuracy related penalties and the other assessments and fees that should not have been warranted in the first place. That's it.
Right, thank you. Again, thank you so much for coming and making your presentation today. Are my co-panelists ready to close the record? Adjourn the hearing, actually, because we're keeping the record open, sorry. Yes, and,
Yes.
all right, and
Yes.
judges. Excellent, okay, then, we are ready to conclude this hearing. The record will be held open for additional briefing until December 20th. And then as well for Franchise Tax Board to respond to any submissions. Thank you everyone for coming in today. The panel will meet and decide your case later on, and we will send you a written opinion of our decision within 100 days after the record is closed. Today's hearing in the appeal of Williams is now adjourned. This concludes today's hearing. Oh, Ms. Williams, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, where would I guess I could have waited till you concluded it. I just want to know, outside of making sure that the franchise tax board, like Andrea gets the things that she needs to get for what I'm submitting to the court, where would I submit that to before December 20th?
I will send an order with our submission information for you to send it to.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, then thank you all for coming today. This concludes today's hearings. Have a good evening.
Thank you.